Once upon a time, Gielinor was a peaceful land. Animals, monsters, goblins and dwarves lived together in harmony. However, this peace would not last. Hordes of men started entering the realm. Their relentless hunger for gold and fame slowly but surely starved the planet of its resources. After years and years of suffering, the gods intervened. All the land of Gielinor was struck by a horrible plague. The only island that remained spared was the peaceful and holy island of Entrana. Hi, my name is Ultimate UIM Pandemic, and this is my home. Before the plague hit, I had moved to Entrana to escape the stresses of society, but today I am stuck. However, all of that will change soon. After years of praying and researching, the monks in the monastery discovered that I can access the mainland by sacrificing my own blood. It is now my job to roam into Gielinor and discover a permanent cure. Let's demonstrate the account rules with a simple example. Every time you enter a region that is infected by the plague, you can only take a maximum of 10 steps. I wrote a small RuneLite plugin that keeps track of these steps. As you can see by the red background, the darkness, and the indicator in the top left corner, we have just entered an infected region. The indicator in the top left corner will decrease each time I take a step. When we take more and more steps, the screen will get darker and darker to make sure we don't overstep our bounds. Once we take the final step, the screen goes entirely black. This is where the rock cake comes in. For each point of damage we can take an extra step in an infected region. Thanks to the rock cake, we can explore the content in the restricted regions, albeit restricted by the amount of hit points we can regenerate. Just like the YouTuber OneChunkMan, I decided to use the internal division of the game into regions of 64 tiles by 64 tiles. Initially, only the 2 regions of Entrana are safe. But I can unlock a new region by completing every quest that starts in that region. For example, by completing Witch's Potion, I would unlock the region of Rimmington, since it is the only quest that starts there. Additionally, whenever we max a skill, we will have safe access to the guild of that skill. So, whenever we max ranging, for example, we will have access to the regions of the ranging guild. Next to that, the player-owned house is safe, and all random events are also considered safe. Now, without further ado, enjoy the episode. Let me quickly show you how I started off my account. First, I needed the Dwarven Rock Cake, and I wanted to get it with the lowest amount of experience that I could possibly get on Entrana. I started out by training my fishing in Lumbridge to prepare to complete the quest fishing contest. I also completed Cook's Assistant, which unlocked the first part of Recipe for Disaster, which is where we get the rock cake. I completed the first level of the Stronghold of Security, because I would need this money to complete the first part of freeing the Mountain Dwarf. Then I won a trophy for Fishing Potion, and went around the map gathering supplies to start freeing the Mountain Dwarf. And with those supplies, I returned to Lumbridge, and I started the quest. After buying the recipe for Asgardian Ale from Emily and Faladar, I was finally ready to go get my rock cake. And there it is. At this point, I dropped all of my items, but there was one last thing I needed to wait for. I needed to wait for my rock cake to cool. According to the wiki, there are 3 ways of cooling down the rock cake before you can actually use it. The first way is simply by wearing ice gloves, but you need 50 mining to get ice gloves, so I didn't choose that option. The second way is by killing an ice fiend, which is level 13. This would have been possible, but I opted to choose a third option, which is simply by waiting for a few hours. The wiki only mentioned you could place the cake in your bank for a few hours, but I figured my inventory would work just fine. So the next day, I really wanted to know if my rock cake had cooled. I just loaded up RuneScape, I was not recording, and I clicked it, and yeah, it dropped to the floor. So I went back, got myself a new rock cake, and then I just stood around in Entrana. I did not want to do anything yet. As you can see here, I waited about 3 hours. But now I got a message, your dwarven rock cakes have been cooled, and I was ready to start exploring. My very first step, of course, was to explore the island of Entrana. What items can I find here, what can I do here? And the first thing I found was a fishing rod, which was really good news. This hopefully meant that I could use the fishing spot available here. I found an egg in my own farm, and also I saw inside that there was another item, and it was a kebab. A food spawn on the island that could prove useful in the first 2 sessions. I continued my exploring, and I quickly realized there's not much to find on Entrana. Probably the most noteworthy thing that I discovered is that I can do both kind of bait fishing, that I can fish for trout and salmon, and that there's small net fishing on the island. And then I started to train up my stats on chickens, gather myself a first inventory of food, and I wanted immediately to try out the pandemic game mode, so once I had this full inventory of food, I prepared my first session in the wild. For my first pandemic session, I already showed the footage in the intro, so I will go over it a bit quicker because I was still experimenting at this point myself. I was trying to see how far I would get with this inventory of food, and I had a goal in mind. I wanted to pickpocket some GP from men hanging around in the bar of Partzarn, because if I could get some GP and if I could get a later point, make it to the fishing shop all the way, then I could buy myself some fishing bait. However, this did not work out so well, since apparently there are no pickpocketable men in the bar. At this point I used a lot of my food already, so I decided to go back to the mainland and restock. When restocking I got my very first imp, and at this point I did not really know on what to use it yet, so I decided to keep it for now. And then I immediately went into my second pandemic session. I really had not given up on my goal of earning my first GP and getting to the fishing shop. I really needed that small fishing net, and afterwards fishing bait to start my fishing training. If I would be able to fly fish here with the feathers I got it later, that would mean I would be able to get much better suit, salmon, which might enable me to go much further into the restricted areas. As you can see, I found some men hanging around here. I could reach them and I started pickpocketing. Just enough to buy myself a small fishing net and a fly fishing rod. Well, I kept on pickpocketing until I was getting low on food, and I wanted to be sure to make it back to the island. Once I felt I had enough GP, I decided to return and prepare to go to the fishing shop. Finally it became time, with some coins in my inventory, to make my way to the fishing shop. Now, once I arrived at the fishing shop, it cost me a lot of my chickens. And I only had a few kebabs left, which can be inconsistent. They can heal nothing, they can heal 1, they can almost heal my entire HP. It's random. But luckily, in the fishing shop we could buy ourselves some raw sardines that we could cook on the range a bit farther, and this would allow us to get back to the island. It was a close trip. We managed to buy ourselves the small fishing net and the fly fishing rod so that we could catch better fish on Entrana. We could go all the way to salmon now. Then it was time to make it back I had my raw sardines and I still needed to cook them on the furnace. Right now I had 5 HP and only 30 steps, which would barely be enough to get me to the furnace, as you can see, where I could cook my sardines. I had only just enough steps to make it, but in the end, I did. As you can see here, I had a few HPs left, and I'm going to cook my sardines now. At that point, I will use all of them, and hopefully this will get me back to the docks. And as you can see here, again, we only barely made it. This was a really close one, but luckily the monks of Entrana walk around a bit. I ate till my last HP, and there I could take the boat and got off. Now we could train some fishing. While training fishing, this is the perfect time to talk a little bit about the future goals of this account. Of course, the first and foremost goal is to complete as many quests as possible and unlock chunks. Now the first goal, or the first quest that I want to unlock, is Witch's Potion to unlock the chunk of Rimmington. To complete Witch's Potion, it's really simple. You need to gather 4 items. Burnt meat, which I can gather on Entrana by killing a bear and burning his meat. An eye of newt, which I can buy in Port Sarim. A rat's tail, which can only be obtained after starting the quest and killing a rat. Luckily, there is a rat spawn really close to the quest starting point, so if we have a few steps left after starting the quest, we can easily go and get that. But the last one is more difficult. It's an onion. There's an onion field northwest of Rimmington, but it's quite far away. So the next part of this episode is gonna be spent on figuring out how will I get to that onion field. While fishing for trout, I had an idea. I knew in the fishing shop, in the back, you could get free bananas. I know if you get the white apron, you can go in the back and get an unlimited amount of bananas without moving. This would mean I could get myself a huge supply of steps just by going to that crate, eating a lot of bananas, and I think I would be able to get enough steps from that banana crate to unlock Rimmington. It would take a while because getting bananas from there is slow, but this would mean that I would definitely be able to complete the Witch's Potion. So I was really hoping I could get myself into the back room, and that's what I tried. As you can see, it didn't work. I would need to do it the hard way. I restocked on food, and now it was time to just try with the trout to go straight up to the onion field. If this would work, it would save me time, because I wouldn't need to go all the way for salmon. But still, if it didn't, I would still have an extra shot once I got to salmon. I decided to just eat half my trout, use all of that to gain steps, and just see how far I got. If I would make it to the onions, I would make it back. If I didn't, I wouldn't. Let's see. Once I was really close to the field, I reached my halfway point. But it was too far away. If I would go for there, it would take me a lot of time regenerating, maybe 30-40 minutes. It would take me way too long to get back. I also noticed that I was still having some spots in my inventory that I wasn't using, or that I could free up, so I could bring more food, which would make the difference, because I was really close. So I decided I would clear up as much inventory space as possible and just try again, and it would work this time. I really did not know on what to use the book, so I just decided to use it on a skill that gave me experience. At this point I figured at one point I would be able to start any skill, so I really did not need to lamp up anything. So I used it on HP, because, you know, the extra early steps could become useful. I also dropped my coins, and I dropped my small fishing nets, so I had the maximum amount of food available, and I went back in. We got ourselves an onion. And as you can see, it was really close. The one trout, the one inventory space really did it. At this point we had to wait it out a bit to regenerate HP. But could you imagine if we tried it the first time, how long and how much further we would have been? How long we would have had to wait to get back to the island. So now that the onion is done, we are ready to get all the other requirements for the witch's potion. It was now time to gather my burnt meat. The only way I could get meat was from this bear, on the island at least. So I had to kill it. My stats weren't that high, but I had a lot of access to food. One HP, baby. Then I went on and cooked this. I actually burnt this on a furnace. And then I just needed to get my Eye of Newt. I made myself all the way to the magic shop in Partsarim, but first I needed to go and pickpocket a few women to get myself the money to buy an Eye of Newt. Now, once I was at the shop, I bought my Eye of Newt, and I also decided to buy myself a nice wizard hat. I barely made it back, and once I made it back, I decided to stock up and go for my final trip before unlocking Rimmington. All I needed to do at this point was get my way to Hetty in Rimmington, start the quest, hand her the items, but I also needed to kill in the fletching shop one small rat, pick up its tail. It was not much and we had way more than enough food, so I'll just quickly show it. As you can see, we're making it to the house now. She says she needed still the rat's tail. We still have way more than enough food. We found ourselves the rat, killed it, and made ourselves back to Betty's house. Just to show you I didn't cheat on this last step, I decided to take one more bite of the rock cake. As you can see, I still had a step left. At this point, I changed in my plugin the fact that this region is safe. As you can see, Rimmington has been unlocked. In the end, by sacrificing his own blood, our hero managed to save the peaceful and quiet town of Rimmington. For the first time in ages, he had left his peaceful island, and he felt a bit unsettled. Would he be able to save the world? Find out in the next episode.